I remember the exact moment the direction of my digital life shifted. It wasn't a hardware failure or a virus, it was a promotional video. The voice was polished, optimistic, full of that corporate certainty. "We are evolving the OS," it declared. "Windows is now your canvas for AI and agents." My fingers paused over my keyboard. I felt a cold knot of dread form in my stomach. This wasn't an invitation. It felt like a decree. My computer, the machine I had built with my own hands, the tool I used for my creativity and my work, was being redefined without my consent. They called it agentic, a new buzzword that meant my PC would soon make decisions for me, a built-in AI watching, learning, acting. The promise was intuitive help, but all I heard was the soft click of a lock. My mind raced back over the last few years, the creeping advertisements in my start menu, the endless prompts to sign into a Microsoft account for the simplest tasks, the updates that felt more like intrusions. This AI announcement wasn't a new chapter. It was the climax of a story I'd been living for a long time. And the reaction online? It was a chorus of my own silent frustration, finally given a voice. Anger, disbelief, a profound sense of betrayal. People were shouting into the void, "Stop this nonsense! No one wants this!" But Microsoft, a titan valued at nearly $4 trillion, just kept smiling and pushing forward. That's when I knew I had to understand. How did we get here? How did the world's most popular operating system, a piece of software generations grew up with, become a source of such universal tension? The journey to answer that question led me down a rabbit hole of corporate strategy, broken trust, and a silent war for the soul of the personal computer. My name is Kalen Vance, and this is the story of the Windows 11 crisis.
To understand the present, you have to look at the past. And Microsoft's past is written in a language of dominance. I spent hours digging through tech archives, reading old court transcripts. In the 90s, under Bill Gates, the mission was breathtakingly simple. Get Windows on every single computer. Once it was everywhere, you made the rules. The famous antitrust case was a glaring spotlight on this mindset. Forcing Internet Explorer onto everyone wasn't about giving users a better browser. It was about controlling the gateway to the Internet itself. It was a raw display of power. That corporate DNA, that instinct to corner a market and then dictate terms, never really went away. It just evolved. When Satya Nadella took over as CEO in 2014, he performed a masterful pivot. The world was moving to the cloud, and so would Microsoft. Azure, Office 365, enterprise licenses, these became the new heart of the company. And it worked, spectacularly. Shareholder value skyrocketed. The chart of their stock price looks like a mountain climber's dream. But as I stared at that relentless upward curve, a chilling realization settled over me. The user, the person actually sitting at the keyboard, was no longer the primary customer. The real customers were now big corporations with billion-dollar cloud contracts and shareholders demanding endless growth. Windows was no longer a product to be perfected for you and me. It had become a delivery vehicle, a piece of prime digital real estate used to funnel users into that profitable cloud ecosystem. Our frustration, our complaints about a cluttered interface or forced updates were just noise, annoying static in the background of a quarterly earnings call that beat all expectations. The incentives had fundamentally and perhaps irrevocably shifted.
The decline wasn't a sudden crash. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a slow, meticulous corrosion of the user experience. Let me walk you through a typical day on my Windows 11 machine. Or should I say, Microsoft's machine that I'm allowed to use. I'd boot up, hoping for a clean start. Instead, I'd be greeted by a start menu cluttered with app suggestions I never wanted, ads dressed up as recommendations. I'd try to search for a file on my own hard drive, and the search bar would prioritize web results and Bing, begging me to go online. The right-click menu, once a precise tool, was now stripped down, hiding advanced options behind a second Show More Options click. It felt clumsy, designed for touch, not for the power user with a mouse. And the account nagging, it was relentless. Want to change your wallpaper? Consider signing in with a Microsoft account. Want to use the built-in mail app? You must sign in. It felt less like an operating system and more like a persistent salesman who had moved into my house and refused to leave. The final insult, the one that boiled my blood every single time, was the shutdown ritual. I'd click Shut Down, needing to leave quickly, but Windows, in its infinite wisdom, would often decide, no, you need an update first. My computer, my property, would openly defy my command. It was a small act of rebellion from the machine, and it perfectly symbolized who was really in charge. These weren't bugs, they were features. Each tiny annoyance was a deliberate nudge, a push towards Microsoft's services, towards their account, towards their control.
And then came the AI. With a $13 billion investment in OpenAI, Microsoft went all in. Suddenly, AI was being crammed into every corner of Windows. Copilot, a sidebar AI assistant, became a permanent fixture on my taskbar. I'd be writing an email, and a pop-up would suggest I let Copilot help draft this. I'd open Paint, of all things, and there were AI-powered image generation tools. It was overwhelming, and worse, it felt useless. I watched demos where executives showed off Copilot's capabilities with the awe of a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat. Find me that Flash game from my childhood, they'd command, and Copilot would respond with a generic, I can't do that, but here's how you might search for it. The point was painfully missed. The promise was an agent that could act. The reality was a chatbot that could barely search. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Microsoft itself had to warn users not to rely on Copilot in Excel for anything requiring accuracy because it hallucinated data. They were selling us a car that couldn't drive while telling us the future of transportation was here. This aggressive, omnipresent AI push had one clear purpose: to keep us engaged with Microsoft's cloud-powered services. Every query, even the failed ones, was a data point. Every interaction reinforced the idea that our local PC was insufficient, that we needed the cloud, that we needed their AI. The personal computer was being systematically dismantled and rebranded as a terminal for Microsoft's intelligent cloud, and we were just along for the ride. Just when I thought I'd seen it all, Microsoft erected a physical wall. The transition from Windows 10 to Windows 11. In October 2025, support for Windows 10 ended. A routine event, you might think, but roughly 40% of users, nearly 400 million people, were still on it. The message was brutal: upgrade or be left vulnerable. But for millions, upgrading was impossible, not because their computers were old or slow. My own desktop, a powerful machine I built for video editing, was denied. The reason? A tiny, obscure piece of hardware called a TPM 2.0 chip, a trusted platform module. Microsoft framed it as a critical security upgrade, a shield against modern threats. But to me, and to so many others, it felt like a lock on a door we never asked for. A perfectly capable computer, humming with power, was declared obsolete overnight by a software requirement. It was planned obsolescence of the most cynical kind, and the implications of that TPM chip sent shivers down my spine. Security experts began dissecting it. That chip contained a unique, unchangeable identifier for my machine, forever tied to my Microsoft identity if I signed in. It was a digital serial number, burned into the hardware, that could be used to track, to authenticate, to control. This wasn't just about security. This was about establishing a hardened, unbreakable link between the physical hardware and Microsoft's cloud identity system. It was the foundational bedrock for their AI-powered agentic future, a future where the computer knows it's you with absolute certainty
and makes decisions accordingly. The upgrade push to Windows 11 wasn't about giving users new features, it was about herding them onto a new, more controlled platform.
The setup process for Windows 11 confirmed every fearful suspicion. I decided to perform a clean install, just to see it with fresh eyes. As I booted from the USB drive, a sense of foreboding settled in. The first steps were normal. Then it asked for an internet connection. I obliged, and then came the screen that made my heart sink. Sign in with your Microsoft account. The option for a local account, the simple, private, offline user profile that had been a PC staple for decades, was gone, vanished. I searched the screen for a tiny hidden link. Nothing. I tried the old workarounds I'd read about, disconnecting the internet at a specific moment. Microsoft had patched them. The system literally would not let me proceed without surrendering an email address to them. I felt a surge of genuine anger. This was my machine. I had purchased the hardware, I owned the license, and yet I was being barred from using it unless I tied it to a corporate identity in the cloud. It was a hostage situation. This was the funnel in action. No local account meant every setting, every preference, every file save prompt would be subtly geared towards OneDrive cloud storage. It meant my digital life was now anchored to Microsoft servers. It meant I was no longer just a user, I was a subscriber, a tenant in their digital ecosystem. The personal computer, a tool defined by individual ownership and control, was being phased out. In its place was a managed device, a gateway. The sense of ownership had become an illusion. If the TPM was the lock and the Microsoft account was the leash, then Windows Recall was the surveillance camera they tried to mount in my bedroom. The announcement was stunning in its audacity. Recall was a feature that would take a screenshot of your entire screen every few seconds, forever. An AI would analyze these images, letting you search your entire computer history with natural language. Find that recipe I saw last Tuesday, or what was the name of that website my friend mentioned in a call? The convenience was marketed aggressively, but the privacy implications were catastrophic. My blood ran cold as I read the technical analysis from security researchers. The database of your entire digital life, every private message, every sensitive document, every banking login you ever glanced at, was stored on your machine in a way that was shockingly vulnerable. Malware or anyone with brief physical access could potentially steal it all. Microsoft assured everyone the processing was local, but the question haunted me. What happens when the local AI agent, the Copilot, is given access to that database? It could analyze my most intimate moments without a single byte of data leaving my PC. It could build a profile of me so detailed, so profound, that not even I understood myself that well. The backlash was immediate and volcanic. It was the spark that ignited the simmering frustration of millions. For the first time in a long time, Microsoft was forced to retreat. They delayed Recall, later reintroducing it as an opt-in feature with better encryption. But the damage was done. Recall had pulled back the curtain. It showed us the ultimate destination of Microsoft's vision, a computer that doesn't just assist you, but studies you. A transparent life, constantly recorded, forever searchable for your supposed convenience. It was the final, chilling confirmation of who Windows 11 was really built for.
You can only push people so far before they start to leave. And leave they did. A quiet but growing exodus began. I saw it in my own circles. The video editors, frustrated with unpredictable performance, looked longingly at the sleek efficiency of Apple's M-series MacBooks. The programmers, tired of the bloat, started dual-booting Linux. Even lifelong Windows loyalists, the ones who built their own PCs and swore by the platform, began to waver. The story of a prominent developer, let's call him Elias, went viral. He had demoed software for Bill Gates himself in the early days. In a passionate online post, he declared he hadn't seen backlash this bad since the dawn of Windows. He recounted a horror story where a Windows update had brazenly wiped his Linux partition, a separate operating system he used for work, without any warning or consent. "This is not a bug," he wrote, his digital voice trembling with fury. "This is by design." His words resonated because they spoke to the core issue: loss of control. When your operating system can destroy your other software on a whim, you are no longer the master of your machine. You are a passenger, and passengers look for safer, more reliable vehicles. Linux distributions became more user-friendly, with gaming compatibility leaping forward. macOS, while a walled garden in its own right, at least felt like a garden designed for the person living in it, not for data harvesters. The market share graphs started to show a slight but undeniable dip. It was a whisper, not a shout. But in the world of 1 billion users, a whisper can be a deafening warning.
So why does Microsoft continue on this path, despite the user anger and the slow bleed of its most dedicated fans? I spent days poring over financial reports, and the answer is brutally simple. It works. For Microsoft, the corporation. The math is undeniable. In their most recent fiscal year, over half of their colossal revenue, billions upon billions, came from cloud services and enterprise contracts. The frustration of a home user clicking away an ad in the Start menu doesn't register on that balance sheet. The forced migration from Windows 10 to 11 with its TPM requirement drives sales of new PCs from their hardware partners. The push to Microsoft accounts guarantees a steady stream of data and locks users into their subscription services like Office 365 and OneDrive. It's a closed, self-reinforcing loop of revenue. I read a statement from a Microsoft executive, Pavan, acknowledging user concerns about reliability and performance. The response online was a torrent of sarcasm and anger. People felt patronized. It was like a landlord apologizing for a leaky roof while simultaneously raising the rent. The apology felt empty because the incentives haven't changed. The shareholders still demand growth. The cloud division still needs to expand, and Windows, with its billion-strong user base, is the perfect engine to drive that growth. User experience be damned. The crisis isn't a mistake, it's a strategy, a calculated trade-off where our goodwill and our control are the currency spent to buy ever higher stock prices. Understanding this didn't make me less angry, it just made me feel chingsi. So where does that leave us? At a crossroads. The Windows 11 crisis is more than a story of bad software. It's a referendum on the future of computing itself. Do we want our computers to be tools, extensions of our own will? Or do we accept them as managed services, intelligent agents that guide, nudge, and ultimately decide for us in exchange for convenience? Microsoft has placed its bet. Its vision is one of integration, cloud-powered intelligence, and a seamless, if controlled, ecosystem. The cost is our autonomy, our privacy, and the pure, simple feeling of owning a tool that does exactly what you tell it to. The alternative paths are becoming clearer. Linux stands for freedom, transparency, and user sovereignty, though it asks for technical curiosity in return. macOS offers a polished, if limited, experience that generally respects the user's space. For me, the journey of understanding this crisis forced a decision. I couldn't unsee the patterns, the nudges, the locks. I built a new computer, a powerful machine, and I installed a user-friendly Linux distribution on it. The transition wasn't seamless. I had to learn, to troubleshoot, to adapt. But with every challenge I solved myself, I felt a forgotten sensation return: mastery. The feeling that this machine, from its silicon heart to its software soul, answered to me. The crisis revealed a hard truth. Microsoft will not change course because we complain. They will only change if we leave. And so, the most powerful response we have is the choice we make. The choice of what we install on our hardware, what ecosystems we support, and what future we vote for with our wallets and our data.
The Windows 11 crisis is not their story anymore. It's ours, and the next chapter is ours to write.